CEO and founder of Benedict's Bank to the Future, and also Metal Monkey Private Equity, and the author of the book Student to CEO, is going to make a special announcement right now. So I'll hand you over to Simon Dixon, and Simon Dixon will hand it back to me, and then we can get started with Daniel Browne.
Okay, I'm just here very quickly. Can you hear me, everybody? I tell you what, there's a little hand counter. If everyone can hear me, okay, put your hand up on your little panel. Then I know you can hear okay. Okay, there's lots of hands up. I think everyone can hear me. I'm here very quickly, and I'm very happy to have Dan Browne here and Jao Islam, who's going to be conducting the interview with Dan Browne. I wanted to make a quick announcement. What me, Jao, and the team at Benedict's have been discovering recently is that the markets have been changing so rapidly at the moment, week to week, that pretty much each and every week, different things are working. Now, we've built from 5 years of working with students and graduates who all want to work in banking and finance, and having a big network of people that already work in banking and finance as well. We're finding different things are working. There's different strategies. The whole world is completely changing upside down. We're seeing completely different things and strategies. So what we figured, and we had a team meeting about what we're going to be doing from now on, and we think we need to be doing a lot more in order to help all of you secure your careers. And securing your careers is really just the beginning. Once you've actually got your career, that's where the fun actually begins. So we want to help you get in, and then after that is where we actually start implementing a lot of the strategies as well. So what our announcement is that we've decided to put together a brand new website that you may have seen. And at the moment it's in pre-launch phase, but it's banktalkshow.com. And what you're going to have there is the ability to create your own profile and build your own little brand. And we're going to be reaching lots and lots of professionals in banking and finance, and give you the opportunity to create the world's first social network for students and graduates who want to work in banking and finance, to meet thought leaders in banking and finance. And what we're doing here is just the first of many. We've got lined up for the rest of the year and beyond lots and lots of really important contacts. So what myself and Jao and the team wanted to do is each and every day we have new people contacting us. They're either looking for students and graduates, or they've got new perspectives, or on my mission to reform banking, I'm meeting some of the thought leaders in banking and finance. And we wanted to give these contacts a platform to keep you up to date with the most latest and newest and changing markets and strategies, techniques. And so we're going to be doing this. This is the first of many. Each and every week we're going to be updating you on the latest. We're going to be bringing new thought leaders. We're going to be bringing new people, and we're really happy to be doing this very first one with Daniel Browne. So that's the announcement from me. You're going to be seeing a lot more. We'd love to get your input on what you'd like of that. But we've got a lot more tricks up our sleeve, and I think you're going to really find this as a useful platform, because we believe that there is a rough ride ahead, and your connections, your network, the people that you know are going to be the key for you surviving the challenges that we face ahead. And so we want to give you that platform and forum so that we can all be in this together and share our connections in an environment where it's easy to do that. So that's all from me. I'm going to now hand over to Jao, and Jao's going to be interviewing Daniel Browne. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon. I'd love to obviously add to that. This is a very, very exciting time for us, and we really hope that this platform is something that many people appreciate. So we really appreciate those people who are here today listening to this webinar. Now I want to quickly introduce Daniel Browne onto the platform now. Obviously, Daniel's listening in. So hello, Dan. Can I call you Dan?
Hello, Joe. Daniel,
Okay,
because otherwise I might be confused with another famous author.
Well, exactly. Well,
Dan
absolutely. So let's get the name right first and foremost. Daniel Browne. We are so, as I said, really excited to have you on board. You've got a wealth of experience within the banking finance sector. Obviously, working for within. Obviously, you'll tell us a bit more about it. I won't give it away just yet. But having worked in investment banking and now you're obviously an entrepreneur as well. Got some exciting projects there. So this is really, I hope many students and graduates who are struggling right now or really looking for real breakthroughs get a lot out of this. So I'm going to try and rinse you for everything I can possibly get. Obviously, I've had the wonderful opportunity of meeting you face to face in your offices in central London. And so we've got about 40 minutes to play around with here. So let's just start off with Daniel. If you could just tell us a bit about how you a bit about yourself actually, and how you got into investment banking, or where it all began, basically.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Well, basically, I began. Initially, I actually studied electronic engineering. I went to UCL, studied electronic engineering. I had no intention of going into banking because I knew loads of people who were doing economics and they worked really hard. Basically, everyone wanted to get into banking, and I thought I don't want to do the same thing as everyone else. However, when I was looking at career options, I realized actually if I wanted to do engineering, I'd have to, one, move outside of London, and two, I wouldn't get paid that much. So I then began to look at careers in investment banking, a bit on the IT side, because I was quite a technical person at the time. And I actually did get an offer from Lehman Brothers for the IT program. And I think I interviewed with about 3 banks, and I went through their technical program, not the technical programs, their assessment centers. So I did actually have a lot of assessment center training, which was quite useful actually. But I got an offer from Lehman Brothers, but then it was withdrawn like a couple of weeks later, and they didn't actually say why. But essentially, I was left in the summer without an offer, and I had to basically start all over again. And so I was a bit of a panic, and I tried to find lots of different opportunities. I looked in lots of different places, consultancies, engineering, telecoms companies, and essentially how I got into it really was a friend of mine just asked me to send him his CV and said, I know someone in Deutsche Bank, send me your CV and I'll send it in. And I actually didn't want to, I actually wasn't interested in working for corporate finance, but I thought I've got no other options, so let me just send my CV and see how it goes. So at this point I had my grades as well. So I did get a first class degree, which definitely helps. But
what was the university you went to, Daniel?
I went to UCL.
UCL, and you got a first class honours degree in engineering.
Electronic engineering, okay. Yeah. So it definitely helped. But
cool, so
I had a friend who knew someone who's a VP in banking. And that was it. So
that's a very strong contact that you had there. So you had a friend.
Yeah.
Was this friend working at Deutsche Bank, or just happened to be really well connected?
No, yeah, it was a friend who was really well connected. It's someone I knew from some of the networking groups that I was part of at the time. And actually, really, he saw my potential. Really, he was someone who really looked out for me.
Okay. That's important to have.
Yeah, not quite a mentor, but someone who's really. Look, I was young. He was a few years older than me, so he was looking out for my career basically. So he hooked me up essentially. So
I would definitely like to probe more further in terms of the contacts, because the whole theme of this interview itself as well is how people obviously get in through using contacts. We're great ambassadors and preachers of instructing people to build their networks, etc. So I think where a lot of people are trying to figure out when they're listening to this is, okay, so you had a contact who happened to be a friend who really looked out for you. And obviously you've been making a lot of practice, so it's not just something where it just landed on your sort of doorstep. You did, I believe, from having spoken with you, you did make a concerted effort as well of getting into the investment banking industry, but corporate finance wasn't really the main thing you wanted to get into, right?
Yeah, as I said, I initially wanted to do IT, and I wasn't interested in corporate finance at the time, but once I started researching it, it sounded quite interesting. So I thought, okay, let's give this interview a go. Basically, I did a lot of research and I put everything into it, and I got the job.
Okay. So, I mean, when you just drawing back on the previous applications you made, you said you started off wanting to go into Lehman's, and fortunately for yourself, you didn't get in, and you didn't understand why you never got chosen for the opportunity, right?
Yeah. No, I had an offer and then it was rejected, and they didn't really explain why. So I'm not quite sure what happened there.
So I mean, we have I think we've got a number of people in this audience who are coming from engineering background or IT background. I think I also challenged you on, what do you think are the qualities that people from an engineering background or IT background have for going into investment banking, as many are reluctant to actually go in?
Well, several. So one is, if you're an engineer, you've got an analytical background. IT as well. It gives you an analytical mindset, analytical way of thinking. And investment bankers definitely like that. It's definitely applicable. Especially you're going to be doing quite a lot of financial modeling, and you need to be able to problem solve, essentially. And also, the way you construct a financial model, it requires a kind of engineering mindset. You've got to do it instead. It's like software engineering as well. You've got to construct it in a way where you test each segment, you make sure it all works, and then you put it all together. So it's kind of similar in that respect. And then also, it depends on the industry, but if you have an appreciation of technology, actually, let me just go back a step. So if you're in corporate finance, you can work in investment banks are typically structured in either country coverage, or they have an industry specialization, or you have a product specialization. So, for example, leverage finance and M&A would be a product specialization. Now, if you have a engineering subject, sometimes it gives you an advantage because then you can really learn about industry. So, for example, useful degrees, those that cover telecoms, chemical engineering, mining, materials, civil engineering, IT, technology. So all of that background knowledge that you get from studying an engineering or technical degree really comes in handy. Actually, even in law, law and accountancy as well, that knowledge can come in useful as well. So for myself, I did electronic engineering, and I was on deals working with like semiconductor producers, optoelectronics, and I understood all of that background knowledge, so it really helped me.
So that was an advantage. I remember you telling me that obviously when you first got that offer through the key contact that you had, your first contact, the friend that you have, I'm assuming this is a very close friend of yours who helped you, yeah?
No, it wasn't that close. It was a networking contact. So I had been to dinner with him a few times.
Yeah.
We spoke. So not a close friend, but a good networking contact.
So how did you? Because I mean, as I said, it's so important that people understand what is the most effective means of networking. We train and teach a lot of students, graduates, how to actually do that for our training programs. But what did you exactly do that you felt was really key to pushing you in that direction?
Well, at the time, I was part of a leadership development program for ethnic minorities called the Windsor Fellowship. And essentially there were part of the elements were training us in leadership. We all had work experience in different types of companies, and it was a great network in the first place. So from there, I branched out into, like, I went to lots of different networking events. I went to the African Caribbean Finance Forum. I used the networks that I already knew. In addition to that, one thing that I would suggest, if you're at uni, get into leadership positions in your university if you're still studying. I was president of the African Caribbean Society, and that brought additional connections as well. So, I know whereas at university they had the Economic Society, and they had people from investment banks come down and speak to them. So I would get into leadership positions in any of the student societies that you have, because that's another context. So it's really about just stepping up to the next level. And
I guess where I'm trying what I'm very curious to know, because I was under the impression this was a close friend of yours, so I've got that wrong.
No,
But in
he's a
terms
good, he's a good enough friend. Not like it's not. I still see him. I still know him, and we keep in contact. But he wasn't a
okay,
good. He
but
was a
no,
good
it's really
networking
important.
contact.
Obviously, yeah, you build your connection, you have that friendship with them. But
Yeah,
how did you exactly? What was the process? Because you said something which was quite key, like the person really cared enough to actually really get you in.
yeah,
So I'm just trying to see the stages of how it actually happened, because that vital contact that you had, who had quite a lot of key connections in the industry itself. So with Deutsche Bank, he went there and gave your application directly to the key person who was the key decision maker.
yeah.
What was behind all of that, from your understanding?
So what do you mean? Are you?
Well, no, in terms of like getting into Deutsche Bank, which was the company where you did your graduate scheme, yeah,
Yeah.
you had you told me that your contact forwarded your application. If you could talk a bit more about that and how that person actually was well connected. I mean, how did you manage to get them to do that for you?
Okay. Well, first of all, my friend who said it, he was a networker basically. He knew loads of people. He went to all networking events. How I got to meet him, we were part of a networking organization. And really, it was quite natural. I wasn't when I was young. I wasn't a natural networker. I didn't go out and specifically network. I just basically turned up to events and spoke to people that I already knew and got introduced to different people. So it was really, I didn't really have a game plan. Essentially, it was I wanted to meet. Really, I was. I mean, I was. I'm just trying to remember. Sorry, it's 10 years ago, so I'm trying to think back now. um,
Okay, so
so it was more a
you had.
question of just for me, it was a question. I enjoyed network, and I just turned up to events that people invited me to. So, for example, we used to have like um, part of the networking group I was part of. We used to have a dinner where each week we'd invite a key person of influence, so to speak, in a different industry. So, for example, we had one guy who was high up in JP Morgan. So actually, that's something that you could actually set up yourself if you get a few people
Mm,
together. So I mean, if you're finding trouble networking, you can also create your own network as well. Um,
brilliant.
but
So
for us,
what
it was
what?
simply a question of put it. A few of us got together. We hosted some networking
Yeah.
events. We invited some key people down. We got a good mixture of people in our group. We had a we arranged a dinner every month, and it was actually that easy. I mean, at the time, I wasn't as I said, I wasn't really a strategic networker. I just networked just because it was something interesting to do.
Do you think the fact that you went to a top tier university and the grade that you got, first class honors degree, um, played an important part in securing that all important role at Deutsche Bank, or do you think it was
Um,
luck?
Definitely having really good grades and going to a good university helped,
Mm,
and but also it's also about confidence. So obviously, if you do go to a good university, you do develop that confidence. But if you haven't, then you just got to develop that confidence factor for yourself. And one of those ways of doing that, as I said, is taking up a leadership position where you can find one. And
mm.
if you don't have that background, you just got to be a lot more proactive, I would say.
Okay, some good advice there. And what do you think are the most important elements of getting into investment banking and being successful at it, in
Okay,
your
so in
opinion?
terms of getting in,
Hmm.
definitely having good grades. But then I think we're at a stage where probably everyone has good grades now, so that's just the filter. So really knowing the right people, it helps if you know where you want to go to. And I would just learn, research, get out there, expand your network of contacts.
When you were in your first year of being going into Deutsche Bank as an investment banker, could you describe briefly the roles that you actually undertook and what you think was your most memorable experience as an investment banker?
Okay. I had quite a few. So I joined a
Time
rotational
when you
program.
mentioned you work.
So my
Yeah.
first year, I started off
Sorry.
in leverage finance. Can you hear me there?
Yep.
Yeah. So my first year, I
Sorry,
started off with.
we do apologize because I think there's a lag there because we're using a webinar technology. It's not the frequency that people get. So when I speak, I don't mean to interrupt you there. Sorry about that, Daniel. If you just answer
All
that,
right.
please.
Okay. Okay. So my first year, I worked in leverage finance actually, and so you're asking me how about being successful. I
Well,
think really you
when
just
you
need
first
to.
started looking in bank, because you went straight to the top and secured an associate level of position, and then you took a graduate scheme program, correct?
No, I joined as an analyst, but then I joined as an analyst with separate from the graduate program, and then I've dropped into the graduate program afterwards just to get the training.
Okay.
Um, so essentially, if you start, you're going to have like 3 months of training, or actually it's cut back now. So let's say 6 weeks. But you're going to be trained. So I mean, to be successful, you just got to work hard essentially, and just but understand also why you're there. You've got to learn who the key people are. You've got to develop a good relationship with your boss, and you just got to develop a reputation for being good. So obviously you've got to be good, but you also got to have people know that as well. And then also network as well. Networking doesn't stop with just getting in. Network while you're there as well.
Right.
And
Well, that's something we definitely keep ranting about.
yeah,
So,
and I
in
would
terms,
like I know lots of people want to get into banking. I would go into an area that interests you because it definitely helps. Like for me, I found whenever I was doing something technical and engineering related, I really loved it and I learned it really quickly. Whenever I was doing something that wasn't very interesting, I found it more of a struggle. So obviously you may not have much choice, but if you go for something that interests you, like some area that interests you, find out what's there, then you'll be a lot more successful at it.
okay. I mean, the thing is, Daniel, I do obviously having consulted so many students and graduates over the past few years. Um, I've come across those who are, a lot of people who are struggling, especially in this economic climate. What advice would you give to somebody that's not really having that much luck in terms of applications or interviews?
Well, I think there's two things there. Either you need to bypass the interview process, which is again about networking and getting contacts in there, or look at other career options because there are actually quite a few routes to get into banking. So one of my friends who joined, he studied law and he worked for a law firm for a bit, and he got into he's actually done pretty well. He now works for his own private equity firm, but just choosing a different career route. So there's so many related areas you go into. Obviously, one thing before I go into that, really have a game plan on where you actually want to get to. But there are other routes. So you can go to law, you can go to accountancy, you can go to consultancy. Probably the more specialized you are in terms of the industry, the probably easier you'll find it to get back into banking. So, for example, if you work in chemical engineering, you learn the whole business. You learn the business model of chemical engineering, and you get a financial appreciation of it. You can actually use those skills to transfer into banking. Or if you work at a consultancy, I guess generally I think it's the more high tech your consultancy is, the better you'll be. But if you work in a high tech consultancy, you learn everything there is to learn. It's easy to transfer those skills over. So I would say if you're not having success in banking, either you've got to bypass the interview process or look at a different career option and just go in through a secondary route. Or you can go to a boutique as well. But I find the boutiques generally want you to have banking experience.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's some pretty good tips there. I think the one where myself and Simon, obviously, Simon through his teaching programs, we teach the fundamental principle of really understanding your niche, knowing exactly what it is you want. So it's really great to hear that from an expert like yourself, who's you've obviously experienced that, and now you're setting up your own businesses and doing your own ventures that you're going into, which I want to talk to you about. But before I do, I've got one controversial question, I believe, anyway. We have a lot of international candidates, people who, yeah, it's not just international, just many people, those who don't have a first class degree, second class, or, who don't come from the top universities. A lot of them have this understanding about the big investment banks only, operating on a sort of old boys network sort of thing there. What's your take on this whole old boys network thing? The fact, I mean, ethnic minorities, international people, women in particular, every one of them. I get a lot of people saying to me, well, Jal, how am I going to get into JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs? I'm not from a top university. I don't have XYZ contacts, etc. What's your take on that, Daniel?
In terms of the old boy network, it's not really that prevalent in banking. It's more, I would say, it's more prevalent in law than it is in banking. It is there, but you got to remember, banking is pretty global, so it doesn't really matter where you're from so much. It does, and you got to notice that banks do operate globally, and they're looking at the huge emerging markets. So I don't really think that's kind of an excuse right now.
Okay, well, you heard it here first. I take it, being international, being an ethnic minority, or not coming from the top universities, etc. That doesn't really matter. Would you say, what would you suggest is the primary quality of an individual to really make it into investment banking?
So actually, let me go back. So address the top university thing. That depends on who you're going to work for. If you want to work for Goldman Sachs, you do need to work at I would say you need to come from a top university.
Okay.
But again, it depends.
So that's where would you agree? I mean, that's where the whole old boy sort of old boy network thing comes into play.
Not at all. Anyone can. Well, sorry, as a top university, but also get good grades. If you've got a first from UCL, you'd have a chance of Goldman Sachs. But let me just break that question down, because there's actually quite a few points in there. So firstly, top university does help, but if you've got a good grade in a good university, then that will stand you instead. Sorry, where was I going with that?
So, well, in terms of, we want to kind of like break down this whole notion about old boy network, and a lot of people are under that impression. How am I supposed to get in? A lot of people are just one directional. They're looking to go into these top major investment banks and completely ignore all the other boutique and mid-cap ones, which is something, I guess it's personal preference, but just to help people understand, those who are international, those who are concerned about it being a highly lucrative sort of selection process. I guess what you're saying is it's down to the individual and their academic credentials.
Yeah, well, actually, so let me go back. So it depends on where you're going. If you want to be a trader, I don't think you need to have a top class degree. If you want to work in corporate finance, it's pretty much like going to work for McKinsey. You've got to have. It does help to have a good degree from a good university, but it's not essential.
Okay.
So and also it depends. Like there's other routes. So it's a bit more complex than that. So to be honest, I wouldn't actually use it as an excuse. For example, you may have a language that's quite useful and relevant. So if you're from the Middle East or from Africa, and there's an emerging market there, then you're the only one who can speak that language. There's an advantage for you there. There's an advantage if you've got a finance background and you've got languages from the BRIC countries, so Brazil, Russia, China, India. So I think at this stage, there will be a niche for you. So I think really it's just about finding your niche.
Just one last point on that on that issue of the old boy network thing, which I think most people are familiar with. Some probably aren't. But I guess it's one of those things which is just being heavily connected, knowing somebody on the inside who gets you in, um, which I think is something that we're trying to teach people of how to do, how to get those key contacts and be well connected, which is the running theme of this interview with yourself. Um,
Yeah, I think actually the old boy network I would say works more in the traditional firms, like the traditional British firms. I don't think that applies to the global banks. So yeah, I don't really see. I haven't. I mean, I haven't really noticed the old boy network. The only old boy networks I've noticed are either the French banks or the traditional English banks.
okay.
Oops, maybe I
So
should have said that about French banks, but hey, that's just my observation.
in terms, I mean, obviously, after we've got quite a number of people listening in right now, um, but what would you say to those? Because now they're going to be looking at yourself, and obviously, we encourage people to be networking with you. What would what would you expect a person to who's looking to get into investment banking and wanting your help, for example? Because I'm just preempting this because I'm forecasting the fact that you're going to be hit with a lot of lots of people wanting to connect with you. What would you suggest to them of how they should go about, um, trying to get help from you?
Well, I think probably the best thing to do is sorry, I'm getting lag here. If they really, I mean, they send the questions to you, and then I can
Mm.
kind of answer the questions. So I'm just going to here, so I'm kind of pausing here. So yeah, if people have got any questions, they can send them directly to you,
Yeah.
and then I'll answer in the amount of time that I have.
Yeah, well, we appreciate your time, and we're coming to a close. I mean, the thing is, there's so many things I do actually want to ask you. I guess, this isn't going to be the last of yourself that people are going to hear about. So I really wanted to, talk about your ventures and what's actually coming around right now and what you've been planning. So I failed to ask you a very important question, actually. Um, how we got to actually meet, myself and you, was obviously through Simon Dixon. So I wanted to actually hear a little bit about your take on Simon and then how you actually met him. And, basically, how did you meet Simon? And what are the sort of plans? Because I do understand that you're working on a little project which you're trying to propose, which nothing's set in stone right now. But if you could talk a bit about that, that would be great.
Okay. Yeah, so I met Simon at a program that we're both part of, How to Be a Key Person of Influence. And it interested me because I had a background in investment banking and he was helping people get into investment banking, so I thought it was a pretty natural fit.
Mm.
And I've got a lot of wealth and advice that I can give people. So I was really looking at creating a program around corporate finance. I noticed Benedict has a strong emphasis on the market side.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for me, the corporate finance side is very, very interesting.
Well, Benedict's is, it works. We actually train students and graduates into the banking finance sector. So we touch upon everything there. But I know in terms of the project that you've outlined with Simon that you're wanting to work on, could you present that in terms of the ideas that you have?
Yeah, so what we're looking is to help people learn the fundamentals of the skill and the skill sets you need for investment banking. So there's two things: there's financial modeling,
Mm-hmm.
and then how you actually apply that. So we're going to cover the whole skill set. So it's M&A, we cover leverage finance, LBOs, valuation, DCFs, all of the financial modeling and corporate finance toolkit. And we're going to create it in a way that actually you get to use it. Like we're going to have a case study really, and we're looking at if we went away, we've got 5 people together, we decided to set up our own corporate finance firm. How would we do that? how do we get our first deal? How do we get investors? How do we sell our first deal? So we're going to create a scenario where we're either going to do an M&A transaction or we're going to do a leverage finance transaction. And we're going to take a real life company and we're going to walk through the whole thing. So from the initial client meeting to completing the deal. So what it will allow you to have a real inside viewpoint into how corporate finance works.
Well, when you told me about that, I was really interested in that, and I guess it's a case of really seeing how many people are really pushing to go into corporate finance, working within investment banking institutions. So if this project becomes successful, I'm sure that there should be some sort of a demand for that. So anybody who's wanting to, who really wants to go into corporate finance and feels that such a program should exist or would be quite helpful, do drop me an email, and I should be able to collate that information and give that to Daniel. Would that be helpful?
That'd be great. And just what to add to that, so this is a corporate finance toolkit. But the great thing is you can use that's not just banking. You can use it for venture capital or private equity. So the skill set is really the same.
So I mean, it really should help, to be quite honest, with people who are looking to go into investment banking. But I mean, at the moment, I guess it's all in the talk stage, the idea stage. Yourself and Simon are, bouncing ideas, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've written a brief. Just so we'll provide more information at a later date.
Brilliant. Well, I know, Daniel, you're a very busy man, and we truly are humble and very appreciative of your time that you have actually spent with us and our audience today. I hope a lot of people have appreciated your time as well, and any information that you've given, they might be able to take advantage of and use some of the ideas that you've given as well. And for all of those of you who've actually listened in, do get in touch with me. Those of you who got any questions, or if you're looking to actually discuss your careers, you've seen the information on the screen. If you can't see it, do drop me an email to just contact me, add me on Facebook or LinkedIn, and we should be able to take it from there. But I really look forward to seeing your development. I think there's one last thing as well. You're obviously, from having done an investment banking career, you did talk about that you went into Moody's, which is a rating agency company, and but you're also an entrepreneur. So if you could just finally tell us exactly what is the next big thing for you, and what are the projects that you're undergoing, and then we can wrap this up.
Okay. So I'm working on two things. So one is a training program that helps investment bankers deal with the pressures of working in investment banks. So essentially, it's for anyone who works over 60 hours a week, and it helps people really improve their performance by managing the energy more effectively. So that's one business. That's called the Zone Life System.
You've already done a live seminar for that.
Yeah, I did one last week actually. Yeah. So that was for entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
So that went pretty well.
So you've got a number of things in the pipeline there. So I guess the other thing that you're looking at is with the whole putting together the investment banking program. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm doing that as well, and also I'm actually doing some fundraising for e-commerce fashion company at the moment as well. We've got a few things on.
Okay, brilliant. How much are you looking to raise?
1.5 million.
1.5 million. Okay. Yeah. Anyone's got any spare cash lying around? With to contract.
Actually, it's quite funny. It's a lot harder to raise 1.5 million than 100 million at a bank.
How are you gonna actually raise that? What is it that you're gonna do? Run a marathon?
No, I'm going to VC and and
Okay.
start angel investing.
Fantastic. Well, I guess just one last question, Daniel, just so that we can summarize this whole thing. If you could give your final say about this whole, what the importance of having contacts are, and if you could just leave that final sort of message and what your thoughts are on contacts, because right now it's even more important to have contacts rather than just making those traditional applications, etc.
Yeah, I mean, I really think it's about who you know. Because like I mean, every company I've looked at, whenever you have a contact, they always bypass the massive applications that you get. But it's not impossible to find the right contacts. Now we have social media, it's actually quite easy.
Okay.
And really, I would just say, go find as many networking events that you can have, that you can find. Start with your cultural networks as well. So for me, my initial networking was all in ethnic minority societies, and that was quite useful. So just go start where you know, and then just see what other networking opportunities you can find.
Brilliant. Well, Daniel Browne, thank you very much for your time. I just want to once again thank everybody for attending this webinar, my first ever webinar, by the way. So forgive me if I've come across a bit sort of shaky, or if I've said something repeatedly. This is something we're going to be working on anyway. So Daniel, you've been very patient as well. So I know that there's been a few technical issues that we had beforehand. For those of you who, as I said, who are interested in careers in banking, finance, would like to be consulted by myself, and would like to discuss your careers, do drop me a message, add me on Facebook, LinkedIn. You can add Daniel Browne as well. We've given you the, his details there, and also get in touch with Simon Dixon as well for those of you who haven't connected. So I'd love to take this opportunity. Thank you very much for attending, and thank you very much, Daniel Browne.